right.
All right.
I think this is the first time we got so many OG legendary DeFi founders in the same stage. And so Hayden couldn't make it today, but we have the four horsemen here of DeFi, and today want a little bit of chat of basically compare a little bit of what has happened in the past. And obviously you all have been innovating throughout all these years. And maybe kind of like first question will be that, I mean, the event is DeFi Renaissance Day, and there's this kind of positive atmosphere around DeFi. And I would like to ask maybe as an opener is, what's different in this time compared to DeFi Summer a couple of years ago? And maybe we could start from Rune, from you.
Yeah, I mean, we've been, I feel like we've been making the rounds for a while and making the basic point around how DeFi's grown up. And the thing that fundamentally is different over the last year, especially in the last 2 years, is this realization that many of the large DeFi protocols, especially like the OG DeFi protocols that had a lot of time to mature, they have real product market fit, they have real revenues, profits, very organized contributor ecosystems, and they just look much more professional and in some ways more boring in a sense because it's like a real business. But that also means there is stability, and as you all know, stability, that's what can cause economic growth, right? And cause a lot of new innovation, a lot of things to be built on top. So we have a foundation now for DeFi Renaissance that is rooted in the proof that you can see on chain any day and see on all the websites and dashboards and so on, that there is like real money, real stability, and a real future for DeFi that everyone can participate in.
And Kain, you're kind of the father of liquidity mining. I believe Synthetics kind of started the whole trend, and with Compound, everything just went forward, and DeFi Summer. For you, I mean, you've been building a protocol in the past, and you're focusing now on the product side, and I think it's kind of like an organic evolution. What's different now compared to DeFi Summer in the early days?
Well, I think, like to Rune's point, that it is a little bit boring, right? Like, and you know, I'll take some credit for this. The whole like real yield idea, that narrative of like, you know, we have cash flows now. We tried to sell something that I'm not sure everyone was ready to buy, and I think we made it a bit too boring. And so, you know, when you look at DeFi Summer, like the fun part of it was fun, but there was also, you know, the kind of real aspect as well. So I do think that there is an opportunity for us to bring some fun back to DeFi. You know, we don't necessarily need to get back to like 800,000% APYs, but you know, there's
1,000, maybe 500.
Just 1,000. Like a simple 1,000. Yeah. We'll just cap it there.
Don't scare them.
But I do think that there's an element there where a lot of people missed out on the fun of DeFi. You know, and DeFi is about permissionless innovation, and you know, people could come and use a new product, learn about it, get access to it. And I think that hopefully with you know, maybe a more open regulatory posture, we can get back to doing some of the fun games, because I think there was a little bit of a chilling effect of don't distribute tokens, don't talk about tokens, don't do tokenization, and you know, the DeFi tokens are also the fun part of it as well. So I'm hoping that we can inject some more fun. We know we've proven these things are stable, they're real, they've lasted years, they've got billions of TVL, like the realness is there. We just got to add a little bit of spice on it, I think.
Yeah. And Konstantin, you basically created a lot of accessibility into DeFi with liquid staking. So what's different from your perspective and Lido's today and in the early days?
Yeah, I think, you know, like this time we didn't have a winter in general, you know, like compared with what winters was before, you know, like in 2000 or, for example, 14 or 2018. Why? Because, you know, like I think in 2020, you know, like when Kain launched Synthetics, you know, like he had already cool app, you work on Aave, and it was 1-inch guys who in general also find the product market fit, you know, like before 2020, it was, people didn't expect that blockchain. So after 2018 craziness of ICO, people thought that blockchain will never be a thing, and people survived, during this bear market from 2018 to 2020. And in 2020, DeFi showed us all what we dreamed, in generally more efficient layer, open market for liquidity, and some of applications found a product market fit. And when the bear market, like the current bear market started, all these applications still working, it's no big fail. And of course, the US rate, treasury rate was high, so it's withdraw a lot of liquidity also from crypto and impact crypto too. But, now I'm super excited because, the new wave of new DeFi applications and the new wave of adoptions of blockchain rails, real world assets and all others is this all the new wave will be about, I think, Ethereum and about DeFi. And why? Because DeFi found product market fit, DeFi, deliver a value for each person on our planet, like internet. They can use the same, financial products just by clicking, without any permission. And this everything, so I'm super excited, and this time is, I think, now the adoption is coming.
And one of the kind of interesting ways to measure the evolution of the space and maturity is basically whether there's a concept of risk-free rate. So we know that in traditional finance that, for example, exists, and you have T-bills and other types of products on the lower end of the yield curve. So my kind of question is, do we have a risk-free rate in DeFi? And maybe Rune, you could talk to that, and Konstantin as well. Do we actually have that type of a concept yet, or is it still quite risky, or where we are on that spectrum at the moment?
Yeah, so I'll be the boring guy tonight and give a technical answer, which is, I think, it's not possible to have a risk-free rate in crypto, and that's because the definition of a risk-free rate is that you don't have unexpected losses. And so that's only possible if you're like a government issuing a fiat currency, and then you sort of define the fiat currency to be backed by your own debt or something like that, right? So like, it can't default. You just cannot lose the US dollars in a T-bill. That's impossible. So that's why it's risk-free. The thing you could lose is USD inflates to infinity. So, well, I guess so. The flip side is in theory it's possible if we make our own fiat, right? And then we create a way to infinitely inflate it.
Would it be possible from a more of like a protocol perspective that there is a resilient enough protocol that can ensure that the risk is minimal enough that there is no defaults?
Yeah, so when I was thinking about this question, which I got it in advance, so I think rather the way to think about it is, we definitely have, I think the equivalent in crypto is branding and Lindy effect, right? So we obviously have things like DAI savings rate and Aave and other even certain centralized exchanges and offering products like this that for some people they just trust this stuff and they really believe in it. And I guess that it plays a similar role. And with Sky, right, as we transformed Maker into Sky and we launched USDS, and the goal is to focus actually exactly on this fundamental concept, right, with the Sky savings rate. And what we're doing is I think basically the right term to use perhaps is savings rate. Basically, that's a way to communicate this idea of like a product you can really trust, that's very proven, that is ultimately not going to give you the best yield in the world because that means taking risk, but rather like it is as risk minimized as it can get. And definitely, we have the OG protocols delivering that today, and the market for this kind of stuff obviously is, it's unimaginably huge. So I think even though we're already now seeing like really cool levels of scale that are kind of mind-blowing, if you imagine what it was. I mean, before 2020, you then were like, oh yeah, in 4 years we'll have billions of dollars, right? That's pretty mind blowing. But it's actually it's still just like a tiny beachhead in terms of like, I guess you can reframe it as, is it possible to replace the risk-free rate provided by governments with a kind of a savings rate or whatever kind of like rate you wanna think of it as, provided by very trusted, very proven, verifiable protocols? And yeah, I'm definitely betting on that myself.
And Konstantin, Lido in practice provides the kind of what we could say the most simple way to earn on chain. Yeah, and do you agree with Rune, or do you think that basically Ethereum staking yield could be closer to that type of risk-free rate?
I think first of all, it's as Rune mentioned, like it's no risk-free. Like it is a risk if you buy treasuries. You saw a lot of bankrupt banks that, of course they did leverage, like and some other things, but you still have inflation. You still have some other risks that you have. And why you have this risk-free, like rate? Because they're Ponzi scheme. Like. I mean, US dollar is a Ponzi scheme who is in general destroy a lot of people, like all over the world by printing money and buying the assets, yes? And I mean, when they create this, like a vehicle to make risk-free, like it still has a risk. When you go into Lido is in general just a middleware, like that is with a mission to keep Ethereum decentralized and censorship resistant. And for now, like Lido is in general, it's a simple tool where you put into smart contracts, like your ETH and get staked ETH, like and it's diversified between already 300 validators. But does it have a risk? Yes, of course. First of all, it is a risk of, like smart contracts. I mean, you have governance risk, you have a flashing risk. So it's a lot of bunch of risk, like,
but in Lido's case, the risk is quite, you have essentially, obviously, there's the Ethereum underlying infrastructure. There is a little bit of delta of smart contracts, and it's quite, I would assume over time that risk becomes like very minimal, that it's basically, you couldn't see a default risk, especially as the smart contract risk decreases.
The more technology is mature, the risk is lower. But what we should understand that, like market is pricing the risk. For example, your rate is 3%, like it is a demand, and it's rated, like in some way. But sometimes market is not efficient because it underestimates the risk. For example, people are pitching like meme coin, like, and some other shit, like, and 97% is losing money, but they're still saying that it's great, like it's a fraud, like, and market hallucinate, like with ACO, with some other, and then they start to be more efficient. And I think, like our staking market is mature. We can't say it's still risk-free. It is a risk because we will mislead people, like, and in general who use that. And I think that any like our APR rewards or yield, like how we will call it, has a risk. That's why it is like an opportunity to get it. And the more we have efficient economy, like I'm a big believer in cyber economy, like the more markets can measure efficiently that, and in general distribute the value to people much more equally, and it's great. And I think what we have right now in crypto is, like open market. And open market, like measures the trades. That's why, like for example, Rune is making, like safe raise, but it's still, like a risk, but try to eliminate rates. It is some other, like more complex products, like that give you much other rewards, but it's still no risk-free. And I don't think when it will be, like it is some risks that happened, like, or they can happen. It can be low, super low, yeah.
So you heard it here first. There's no risk-free opportunities in DeFi.
But I think like even it's not even the right question. I don't know why I became the degen on this panel. Maybe I always was, but people want the risk-filled rate. They don't want the risk-free rate. They want the 1,000% APY, right? They don't actually care like that. The average person in DeFi is not looking for like 4% yield, right? Like I think there's room for that for some products, and it makes sense, but we also need to cater for the other side of it as well, right? Like we need to cater for the people who want like recursive Go Pendle short-dated pools, or some crazy lending yields.
So this is interesting. So if we think about TradFi, for example, and we all meet a lot of institutions at the moment, and they don't understand what is Pendle or looping in the same way, and but there's a lot of opportunity for institutions, traditional finance to come on chain, and this has been happening with Biddle and a lot of the tokenization and RWA. What kind of features you will see actually being helpful for TradFi to come on chain? Is it that kind of like a risk-taking opportunity that it's more of like a arbitrage for some of these institutions to be here first and take the opportunity, or do you see that there's some other types of things that DeFi can give for TradFi, or is it purely about that, moving up on the yield risk curve and yield curve?
I think it depends on the audience, right? Like for institutions, of course, they want risk. They want the risk-free rate, right? Like they want the most senior tranche of whatever yield you can offer. And I think that those people will eventually come. And I think to Rune's early point, we've got enough Lindy now that they're starting to at least consider it, right? That it's like a possibility for institutions to play that game, whether it's a pension fund or whatever. But we also have the existing people that are the current demand side, and those people want a bit more degeneracy, right? So there's someone needs to take the junior tranche of the risk spectrum. So.
And Rune, you're basically, let's say Sky is basically a capital allocator in DeFi space at the moment, and allocates capital to different DeFi protocols and also into more TradFi. How do you think of risk taking from that perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in many ways, it is the central sort of question that I guess a lot of the people in Sky are just constantly asking themselves, because it's sort of it's one of the areas where, and it's the reason why, Maker already has so much governance and so many governance troubles, and why that's still the main thing that sort of Sky is spending so much energy on, is this fundamental question of where should you put your money? And the reason why that's the case is because it's this like fractal, infinitely complex issue where, in theory, the more you think about it and the smarter you think about it and the longer you think about it, the more money you'll make, at least as the pile of money you're allocating gets bigger. Like when you have a small amount of money, you can sort of just make a bet in one place, and then you can beat the market in theory. Once you have enough money, then it's like the more money you put in one place, the lower the risk-adjusted return gets in that one place. So you have to start putting your money in all sorts of places. And that means it gets super complicated, and you need lots of people and lots of processes to deal with it. So actually in Sky, one of the main solutions to approach this challenge is to split up the whole thing into like subdivided sub-DAOs called stars, such as Spark, that you hopefully have heard about, that is right now allocating into Lido through Aave on behalf of Sky, using sort of a set of risk models, like sort of like layers of risk safeguards, basically, right? Where on the Sky level there's one risk strategy applied, and then Spark basically operates within those boundaries to allocate some capital onto Aave, which then has its own model for how much it allocates into people levering up on Lido, basically. And funnily enough, this kind of sounds like how things work in TradFi. They have intermediaries intermediating other intermediaries, and you have these like layers of intermediaries. But that's how you have to do it if you want to allocate like billions of dollars, and you don't want to run into the issue I was talking about before of concentration risk and basically sort of concentration inefficiency. So I guess the thing that we can do differently and much, much better with DeFi compared to TradFi is the whole thing can be super, super transparent. And then, of course, we're going to totally beat the hell out of TradFi, because when there's so much transparency, there's so much access to all of the data, we can really apply like advanced AI and advanced community-driven processes to this stuff to just get the best possible decisions made.
Well, here's an interesting question. You mentioned about governance, and pretty much all of these protocols that we've been contributing are governed by decentralized organizations. And for me, it's quite fascinating because it's damn hard to actually create a successful company over the years. And I think it's even harder to do it in a more like a decentralized environment. And you could argue that these DAOs are the most successful DAOs in our space. And DeFi has product market fit, they're generating yield, and they are actually profitable. So maybe like the one thing that people always see in DAOs is a lot of drama, depending on like, it can be something really, it can be something really stupid, or it can be like a really just big discussion that you have all kinds of opinions. And one interesting question here is maybe it's just because we do everything transparently and not in closed doors, so people can publicly see the actual context and discussions, or maybe DAOs is a vehicle that is really creating overhead. So one interesting question is that is the path forward actually DAOs with these protocols, so governance or ungovernance? And maybe, Kain, we can start from you because you have an interesting DAO model in the synthetics back in the days, what you've been contributing, and I'd like to hear your opinion.
Yeah, so I think, I think it's an issue that, when Maker first started, right? Like we didn't even have on-chain activity, right? But it was a DAO, and it was trying to figure out how to organize itself both off-chain and on-chain, which was really challenging, right? And when we started Synthetics, looked at the existing, the prior art, and there wasn't a lot, but like Maker was one of them, and we tried to optimize for efficiency, but also for transparency and all of these different things. But it was very experimental. We didn't know exactly how it was going to work out. And we needed more experiments. We needed people to learn the lessons from those experiments and iterate and try different things. And I think, unfortunately, in probably right before DeFi summer, there was this sort of regulatory chilling effect that happened, where everyone started looking over their shoulder and saying, "Ooh, am I allowed to do this? Can I try this?" And
I remember you kept calling me and asking as well.
yeah. We were all talking, I remember going to dinner with someone who's not here and, having a long conversation about are we all dead, right? it was really clear that this was not, it went from a situation of we need to educate these well-meaning people about why what we're building is better to, oh no, they're trying to kill us. Right? They're actually trying to shut us down. They're going after every angle that they can go after to try and kill crypto, whether it was DeFi or whatever. And what that did is it meant that for the last 4 years, we haven't really seen the level of experimentation that you would see naturally, right? It's constrained it. And so, I think that there are all kinds of different approaches that people could try. Hybrid DAO corporations that could potentially be more efficient, that are just not even...
Or immutable contracts.
Immutable, there's just a lot of things that a lot of different areas of the solution space that weren't tried. And so one of my hopes is for the next 4 years, when maybe we have a more permissive regulatory environment, is that we'll be able to go back to experimentation and start to try new things, and new projects will be able to, if you're a small project, YOLO, try something super risky. You couldn't do that for the last 4 years. The smaller the project you were, the more scared you were, right? It's one, I remember talking to these founders who basically got run out of crypto, and they said, you know what, we never launched a token. We are, under scrutiny from the SEC and the CFTC. You and Stani can fight them. Literally, that's what they said to me, right? And I was like, I'll let Stani know. But if you're a small project...
That's Hayden, that's why he's in here. Right?
No, but if you're a small project, the risk is even higher, right? For the last 4 years, you needed to be so careful. That's the opposite of what we should be doing, right? Small projects should be experimenting more, trying different things, because it's not as big of a deal if they fail, right? But there was this jeopardy on the founders themselves that if they experimented in a way that exposed them to regulatory scrutiny, that someone would turn up and kick the door down and drag them away, right? And so my hope is that for the next 4 years, we get back to like the smaller projects with a small team of 5 people, like try some weird stuff. Right? Let's do more governance experimentation, because I do believe that DAOs are a new form of coordination, and I do think that they are not just inefficient, right? I don't think that it's just a net negative. I think that it's a way for us to coordinate people globally in a way that is different to a corporation. So I think there's something there, but I do want to see more experimentation, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And Konstantin, what's your take?
I think it can
governance
take,
or on
I
governance.
will try to be short. Like it can take 30 minutes to just discuss what.
Give me a short
how
answer.
it works. Short answer is DAO are hard. And to run a DAO, I don't know. Right, it's a lot of decentralized organization, but how of them are real DAOs? Or maybe like 10 or 20, or not a lot. Why? Because nobody use real governance. A lot of people use multi-sigs. They bring a lot of risk. And again, to run a DAO is super hard. Why? Because it creates a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of inefficiency, and it's no book. You can read and find a way how to do DAO. And for example, if you want to build a corporation, it's clear. Okay, you need to have OKRs, C-level, and so on. And just build product teams. When you are making a DAO, you try first of all to make all the mistakes that corporation did. And what I also can try to say is that a lot of corporations, they are more decentralized than a lot of DAOs and crypto. They use this regulation not clarity, but a lot of them are really centralized corporation. And I think that first of all we need to. It's really hard to innovate here because regulation is hard. And everybody was scared by it. But it's maybe like some tokens are more shares. Some of them are. But what really DAO bring you is technology regulation. And technology regulation is even bigger thing. Why? For example, Bitcoin just regulated that it's 21 million, and Lido is a middleware, just technology regulated some rules how the staking works. And if you will think about how the next economy will work, like cyber economy, like AI and so on, it will be technology regulated on blockchain, and that's why you need to, in general, figure out how to make it efficiently. And sometimes, and I really like our MetaLex, and Gabriel Shapiro opinion, he introduced a cybernetic organization called Borx, and what it solved, for example, we saw the issues in Cosmos or ecosystem of ICF, and also in Tezos, they were even more weird in this foundation, that it is a foundation that are non-commercial organization, and how the code can in general signal to change the direction of this foundation. It can be done, so we can create this cybernetic organization between middleware, core technology regulated organizations like Lido, Aave, and others, like Maker, and we can have a real mid-space organization that can be governed.
So, Rune, given there's no drama in Maker, I'm expecting a very short answer from you.
So I firmly believe that we're not going to see effective decentralized governance until we have proper AI governance, basically. That, as I was talking about before, that's the advantage that we really have is the transparency and the data accessibility in DeFi. The disadvantage is nobody knows how to do it, and there's a lot of bureaucracy, and there's even politics. And actually, it's the politics part that is that's what causes the big issue with decentralization, because you have you don't have a good way to deal with power vacuums. Basically, it's either you have someone you can trust run it, and then it's kind of centralized anyway. It's decentralized, and then there's a power vacuum, and then that creates politics, and that's kind of very often that's the cause of drama.
Maybe you and I should stop creating power vacuums.
Well, if you don't create power vacuums, then I guess the way to think of it is the way you don't create power vacuums is you put in an autonomous system, right? And very early on, in the early days of Maker, the people involved really thought that, well, you just have the right people and they're all libertarian and they sort of all believe in, in
Works well.
Ayn Rand or whatever, and then they become this sort of autonomous hive mind and they just work together, right, for the betterment of the system. But it just doesn't work like that. Power corrupts, right? So,
Have you tried
Yep.
immutable contracts?
look, the issue with total, like what I call purity decentralization, is that the design space, as far as I can tell, goes to pretty much like a Uniswap for meme coins and a protocol token, right? So that's as far as you can go. All the interesting stuff with DeFi, actually, we didn't really cover that yet, but I think it's important to mention that all the things that have made DeFi possible that exist today, that's all based on stablecoins, specifically USD stablecoins. It's also funny to note how you were talking about now that the regulatory environment has changed and all that. No, you don't need to specify that we're talking about the U.S. elections, right? It's just like it's a given. Everything is built on top of the American economy, even all of DeFi, right? Because it's all USD stablecoins that opens up for these things. This things like a risk-free rate. We're obviously discussing USD rates here. That leads us back to this problem of, well, you have to allocate into things that are stable relative to the US dollar, and that requires this super complex governance. And then that leads us to, well, general governance processes, politics, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and long story short, my answer is we need actual AI governance to solve this. And in the short run, we're kind of just setting the stage with systems that eventually will be capable of becoming what I call AI native. So mechanisms where you can sort of end-to-end apply just like the full capabilities of technological improvements. TradFi will in many places not be able to do that. Like they'll have powerful enough bureaucrats that will simply resist automation, and that's going to be a big like moat basically that DeFi is struggling through at this stage, right? That we are basically building up by powering through the kind of the meat space governance that's happening right now.
So our mode is being able to get rid of the people.
I mean, that's always been the point, right? That's been.
So speaking of AI, what do you vision for example, years from now in DeFi? Because on-chain feels like a really good execution and environment from automated systems like for example, AI agents. Is that something that you currently think from your own product perspective that there's going to be a lot of AI, what you mentioned, but also AIs as the consumers of these protocols and products? Maybe Kain, you probably have something on this topic.
Yeah, I probably do. I think we're in a weird space where like the AIs are really dumb, right? They're dumber than us, and I think that I'm a fast takeoff guy, right? So I believe that like we'll get to this inflection point where they will be like kind of dumb, and then they won't be dumb at all, and then like 20 minutes later they're way smarter than us, right? And I don't know what the impact of that will be, but I feel like this period of time where like AIs are too dumb to help us. I mean, they can kind of help us a little bit, right? But not much, right? Won't last that long. Like it'll be a small window, and so I don't even know whether there's a point to prepare for that window of time, right? And then what happens post singularity, I also don't know. So, I guess just keep building DeFi and hope that they stay dumb for a little bit longer.
Yeah, like we in Cyberfund, like back in 2014, like our thesis was about cyber economy, and blockchain wasn't just a first use case, like a foundation for it, and also we look on blockchain like Ethereum, like an artificial intelligent network where we are in agents, like that push some information. Can you kill Ethereum now? And maybe it's more live than we are, and maybe it will stay more than we are. So, and what I try to say is that, like it's either our time, of singularity that is really close. We feel it almost by maybe it's 10, 20 years, but it's super close. And I mean, it's also a question for humans how they will work with the super intelligence that will drive on our. And for crypto, it is a big opportunity. Why? Because crypto is a rails. It's a foundational layer for it. It's give you trustless coordination and communication. And we see a lot of interesting projects, you know, like, and why it's super important to think about that. That if, for example, OpenAI that is not open, you know, like, will get like a super intelligent, you know, like we will be just cyber slaves, you know, like the people they can just switch AI, you know, like, and MakerDAO can decide anything, you know, like, because we were connected to the most like best model, you know, like, and this is super important that we should invest more to deliver, you know, like decentralized or foundation models. It's possible to compute them by community, you know, like, and make them smarter and create a cyber economy that can be more equal for people, more distributed, like we did with Ethereum. You know, like we, in general, build a layer that is available for everyone. And it's amazing what we did, you know, like, I mean, not we, but we just contributed by investment during ICO. Lido contributed to keep it decentralized. You build the best DeFi protocols, you know, like, and I think it's a good example that with AI, you know, like, it's super important for people, you know, like, to get more attention and figure out how we, because, you know, like, all crypto is about, you know, like, mechanism design. When you speak about, like, permissionless or innovation, and when you're, like, want to deploy something, all about mechanism. And AI is also close to it, you know, like, and that's why I see a big opportunity for crypto in general to be, you know, like, early adopters of this technology and make it more, you know, like, good for people. That's super important.
And Rune, what's your take on will your future users be AI agents?
For sure, I think, I mean, the big MEV actors right now are already probably doing like generalized real-time learning as they exploit all their MEV and arbitrage opportunities and so on. So that's already happening. I think maybe if you look at it from that angle, then it might not necessarily be that you have tons of like, I guess you could say autonomous agents that are really just like sort of unbiased actors trying to make money anywhere they can. Because that stuff tends to centralize and collapse into one, right? And we have sort of a few gigantic players like this that, you know, every time you're trading anywhere in crypto, you're sort of trading with the same the same company basically all the time, right? And that's how finance just works. I don't think that will really change. But the thing that could very easily change, that I really hope will change, right, is that, I mean, this goes back to, this is the other thing, we could have talked about this, the whole panel, right? User experience in DeFi, right? Which I also happen to think needs to be solved through AI. Because, I mean, the problem is it's so freaking complicated to do all that like weird stuff, and you have to approve, and you have to this and that and so on, right? And it's easy to imagine that you have your personal agent that sort of takes care of it for you, right? So you have some intention to do something, and then there's this kind of middleware that is basically like it wouldn't even have to be that smart, right? It could be sort of relatively dumb, because we're not talking about, you know, defeating Wintermute in the MEV wars. All we are talking about is like setting the limits correctly and approving the right thing and not falling for a scam, right? That I think will show up probably everywhere. And very quickly it will not be AI anymore. It will be some like simple steps that you have some simple algorithm follow, and it's not really that fancy. And this tends to happen with AI, right? When it's not when it doesn't exist yet, it's AI, and then when it's finished, it's like statistics or like code or an algorithm or something. But I think one thing that is needed to get to that point is some kind of like a knowledge base or some sort of something that makes it easy to understand what are the things that you you know, you need to basically deal with to have like a simple AI that's easy to build, that you can have open source. And this is actually the kind of stuff that a lot of contributors in the Sky ecosystem is working on, because that same problem feeds into the issue of allocating capital and managing risk.
And earlier, Kain, I think you mentioned about, you know, building a moat for DeFi. I'm actually curious also, in DeFi, liquidity moves really quickly. So if there's some sort of a new yield opportunity, it gets filled quite easily. Users move quite quickly, and probably with the AI agents, that's going to just accelerate. From more of like a product standpoint, how do you build a moat? Like, what's the moat, for example, for Lido?
I mean, first of all, like moat is a good question when you invest in startups. You will ask them the moat, and they don't know what is it. Usually, they try to figure out how to find it. And I did the same when I was first time raising. And for Lido, it was a clear moat. It's liquidity. I mean, equation if you are the most liquid asset on the market, then you are more integrated to DeFi and so on. Then you give this value because the value of Lido is in general it's give you liquid staked.
So you're saying liquidity is the network effect that keeps compounding.
But that was also in different stages your positioning on the market and their product is changing. For example, now liquidity may be not the biggest mod right now. Maybe it's integrations, and adoption. For example, why you have the lowest rate for lending staked ETH in Aave because this is the most old and some looks by the market maybe it looks like the most secure solution for staking of it, and so that's eventually changing in different markets. But what is important, I also want to touch UX story that for current bull market it's a lot of enablers. It's not just happening part of that regulation, but what is super important that UX is changing. Now soon our grandmas can use DeFi, I think this cycle, when you can in general do everything in one click, and get really user experience of Binance on Infinex or in some other wallet, and it's amazing, we will create an open market that is adoptable, that is open, that is transparent, and that you can make in one click, and it's game changer, and I'm really excited about that.
So Kain, is UX then the moat for Infinex?
I think UX is how you get the moat, right? I don't think it is the moat because in permissionless systems, once you show people how to do something, you can easily replicate it, right? We saw that with most of our protocols, except maybe you guys. Forks of forks of forks of forks, right? So I think
they always get hacked or
they always it's a weed thresher problem, right? But they always blow themselves up. But I think that the real moat is distribution. If you build good UX and you capture users and you have a large user base, then all of a sudden you've got distribution, and it's what Binance has now, right? Binance has distribution, and they've got a lot of power. Coinbase, the same thing. The problem is that distribution power is centered around someone's database, right? So the idea is to ensure that distribution power goes to DeFi, right? And that if you have 100,000, 1 million, 10 million users, they're using Aave or Sky or Lido for their yield, right? And that they're not sitting in someone's database and being value extracted constantly.
And Rune, you've seen a lot of stable coins appear into the market, and back in this DAI and USDS. It's the stable coin that's been used in DeFi historically. How do you see the moat for Sky?
So actually, the way I'm thinking about moats is a really interesting question, right? And it's I feel like crypto in many ways, DeFi is like a very future-looking industry. So people tend to have a better understanding and sort of care more about what does this really mean? And I think what you guys were saying is basically correct, right? But I think there's there's sort of a spectrum of business cases just in general, and then if you look at sort of either extreme end of that spectrum, that's where you sort of have the really powerful moat, right? So on the one end, you have kind of the stuff like brand, user base, liquidity, and this is kind of it's sort of like an immovable object. It's something that it's there and it just gets bigger and it just sort of stays the same, and that's why users and profit capability gravitates toward it. And then the other end, you have basically governance, technological processes, and then artificial intelligence. That's sort of what it all collapses into, right? And that's I guess that's like the unstoppable force concept of like, it's something that just accelerates faster than everything else. And that's why that's what the mode is, that like it moves so fast that even though it's constantly moving, it's hard for others to keep up with it, basically. So Maker historically has basically the DAI brand and the DAI savings rate, as that's like the fundamental brand and liquidity mode. The problem with that was always it was like very DeFi OG centric. And that really is that's what created the opportunity for the transformation into Sky, right? And so with the transformation to Sky, now there is this massive effort to establish Sky savings rate, USDS, as another sort of an even more broadly appealing brand that just provides the secure, decentralized savings that is available, where you get to access the full power of DeFi, but as a savings rate, right? As something that is not risk-free, because that's not possible, but it's the lowest possible risk, while you still get like all of the value in a risk-adjusted form. But even more importantly, with Sky, there's like a complete commitment to developing this unstoppable force mode, right? Of actually trying to solve governance, like really going all in on just being like, okay, we simply have to solve it for real. And that means establishing sub-DAOs, right? Subdividing the ecosystem to basically handle the monolithic bureaucracy problem. And then getting into AI governance, getting into standardizing data. And the things I was talking about earlier, like sort of standard, like developing a DeFi ontology, like developing sort of systematized ways of thinking about this stuff. And then just applying all of that in a way that is, that's transparent, that's verifiable, that is open source, so that it all funnels back to kind of the other end of the spectrum in form of the basic brand liquidity and user base of the Sky savings rate and USDS.
Yeah, and I mean, what I liked what you said about the kind of like a constant, the AI aspect, and I think what we think from Aave's perspective is that having that constant innovation curve is what basically keeps a mode going. And that's what we've been doing, going from version 1 to 2 to 3, and now building the version 4. And obviously it helps for a mode quite a lot if you have a cute ghost as the logo. So, but one thing we're doing, for example, at Aave Labs, we're expanding into non-EVM world by writing a new code base in Move. In Aptos blockchain. And something I want, and a lot of the audience probably wants to hear, is that what are your takes on expanding beyond EVM? And I think there's probably we'll hear different opinions. Maybe I would like to start with Konstantin, because you're fundamentally building a really Ethereum native project. And let's keep answers short. We've been here for a while, but
yeah. Okay, I'll try to be the shortest. Yeah, so here, I mean, first of all, I invested in all these blockchains the early days, from Ethereum, Cosmos, Definity, Polkadot, Solana, Seed Stage, and so on. So I know the guys, and why I invested in it, to answer your question, because the competition is always good, because if Ethereum will be only alone, it will go in super slow. But for me, Ethereum is a winner. And for Lido, if particular, if to answer to your question, for Lido, it's really difficult to expand, because the code base is unique, the middleware is unique only for Ethereum protocol. And when you go in, for example, and when your Lido is the biggest protocol, and you go into Solana, it's all about communities, they have all native solutions, that is super good, and that they like more, it is more liquidity mining, because they have a bigger community. So it's really super hard to expand, to other blockchains with own community. And also, what is important for me, I think with chain abstraction, soon, or a lot of people, next billion people don't know what blockchains they use. They will just use a wallet. Of course, it will be a lot of trust, but how much trust to L2s now, but eventually, everything will came to a good UI, like people want lending, people want trading, people want something, like they don't want to like a blockchain or a special virtual machine. But of course, some of them and these experiments, for example, we have SVM, some WASM, like some other, it's creates a lot of innovation, like, and in push EVM to be parallelized, and it's a lot of question of scalability, like, and security, and but EVM is the most, how to say, time checked, thing, like, and to go to other blockchains, it's not only about virtual machine, it's also about the community, it's also about the complexity, and in general, can you make your protocol successful there?
Okay, do you agree? What's your take on going beyond EVM?
Yeah, I obviously am building a cross-chain platform now, right? It's on Solana as well as a 6 EVM chain. So, I had to pivot away from my ETH maxi-ism that I came from, which, I was a Bitcoin maxi at first, and then I became an ETH maxi, and now I'm I don't know, all chains maxi, right? I think we should be, I think we absolutely should be focused on what the user wants to do, not necessarily where they want to do it. It's a little bit crazy that we're so tribalist about, I'll only use a lending protocol if it's on this chain. So yeah, I think eventually we'll abstract away the chains and it won't matter. For the user, what will matter is whether the user gets the best experience. So it'll allow us to get to a more efficient market where the best chain with the best applications will win, because the user will want to go to those applications because they won't need to know about where it is. They'll just want that functionality. Yeah, and Kain, you mentioned that and announced earlier that USDS is going towards expanding to Solana. Is there plans to go beyond Solana, and what's your thoughts about non-EVM? EOS.
Yeah, so Sky will launch USDS and the Sky savings rate on Solana very shortly, and then after that, go to the Ethereum L2s. What's really cool about the expansion that's coming to the L2s following the Solana launch is that this will be with something like a system called Skylink, which basically expands the entire core features of the protocol onto the L2s. So that's really cool. So you cannot, you don't just get the Sky savings rate with USDS. You can also get token rewards, and you can also expand, move across the PSM capability, so infinite stablecoin liquidity. So I think that's a major part also of what's going to define Sky and how it approaches the multi-chain opportunity. And it's kind of what you guys are talking about as well. Like you would ideally the blockchain it's just invisible. You don't even think about it. And one of the key ways to get to that is you got to have all the features everywhere. You got to be native to everywhere. You can't be like reaching across blockchains and having to do multi-chain complicated fragmentation stuff, because that's going to reintroduce a lot of latency and a lot of the slowness that originally held blockchain back. So by being able to offer the core features natively everywhere, you make that invisibility possible. So of course the end goal for Sky is to bring that to every blockchain. But yeah, you're going to face always similar issues to what you were talking about, that every time there's some quirks with implementing this stuff. So if you really want to do this in a sustainable way, it brings us back to dealing with governance and dealing with AI and figuring out how to, again, automate a system with no humans involved, that from the end user just looks like a nice cute interface with a cute logo or a cute ghost or something, and you're getting the savings rate, right? The best possible risk-adjusted rate, provided, delivered to your doorstep by some super complicated decentralized AI processes. And that, I hope, will be the Sky savings rate that everyone will recognize.
I like how Rune's every solution is AI.
Get rid of people.
But, yeah. But yeah, this was an amazing discussion, and thank you all for coming here and taking the time, and hope you all enjoyed, and thank you for coming.
Thanks, everyone.